In this video, I'm about to chess it out with an opponent that has a player rating of 1152 compared to mine of 1136 prior to this game. And normally I'm supposed to be intimidated because, of course, he's obviously a player with a higher rating compared to mine. But this is a game of chess, and your first mistake is to be intimidated by the rating of your opponent. And so I started out using the English opening by moving my piece to the c4, and it responded with a d6. Now, at this point, I don't want to go with the general opening because I know this opponent is vast and very good to at least get to the rating of 1152. So all I want to do here is just confuse my opponent by playing something different from the usual. So I responded by going e4, and then he gave a random move on a6. I don't know why I did that, but I actually don't care at this point in time because I have my plans, and I'm currently protecting my piece on c4. As you can see, my bishop is protecting that, and I'm still confident that my piece on e4 is also protected because there are no piece threatening my piece at the moment. And then I had to move my knight to f3, and then he goes b5, threatening my piece on c4, right? But I'm not faced because I know my bishop got that covered, right? So I moved my bishop closer in order to prepare room for my king to castle anytime I want to. And he took the bold step by capturing my piece, and of course I retaliated, boom, with my bishop. Now we responded by playing a double move, going on c5. I wasn't faced. I responded with my knight going on g5. And at this point, I'm threatening the f7 box. You can see my bishop is pointing down there, and my knight is ready to pounce on any attacker, right? So because he's a smart player, he blocked that out, and I can't really do much with this because if I'm going with my knight, he's going to capture my knight. Okay, so all I did was to check his king, bringing my queen on a4. Now, as soon as I did that, he responded brilliantly with his bishop attacking my queen. Okay, so I had to just take the risk, and I moved on with my knight, considering the fact that if he captures my queen, I'm also ready to capture his queen, tit for tat. And then he surprisingly captured my queen, but then I was prepared for that, and so I had to respond by capturing back. And then obviously his king captured my knight, which is not too bad. Okay, only that he's currently a piece up compared to myself, and so I had to capture another piece of his in order to even out, which I did. And then he moved to f6 using his knight. And at this point, I looked across the board, and the best move I can come up with at this time is just to castle, which I did. And he responded with his knight on e4, capturing my piece. That was so hurting, and I had to look for something that is kind of brilliant at this point in time, just to help my counterattacks. And I spotted out that the d5 helps me threaten both his knight and his rook. So any of this piece is going down at the moment from this position. And for one reason or the other, he had to move his knight and sacrificed his rook. And I wasn't too shy to get the rook. Thank you. Okay, so as soon as I got the rook, he wasn't too happy about that, and he made a dramatic move. Bishop on c2, trying to capture my knight. And of course, I care so much about my knight, and I don't want anything to happen to the knight at this point in time, so I had to move my knight to safety, and at the same time I'm pressuring the bishop, and he spotted that out on time and moved his bishop to d3, which I responded with my rook coming to e1, because if I didn't do that I'll be losing my rook. And suddenly I saw a random move from him on g6. I don't know why he did that, probably to release his bishop, but at this point in time I worry more about my own moves. So I moved my piece to h3 in order to create room for my king to avoid any attack. Right, and then he responded by bringing his king forward to add more pressure to my piece, and then I moved my bishop down to f3. The reason why I did this was to capture the knight in case he's trying to get his knight involved, so it would be so difficult for him to get his knight involved at this point without my bishop capturing. So that was why I moved to f3. And then he moved his own bishop as well. I'm sure at this point his plan is to capture my rook back, because I just captured his rook a few moves back, and I wasn't too phased. I had to bring out my rook, threatening his bishop at this point, and he didn't care about that. He moved his rook. I don't know why, but I wasn't too shy to capture. Thank you very much, second time. And at this point I got on his nerves, and he had to take out the bishop because he doesn't want me to. He had to take out his knight because he doesn't want me to capture the knight, and that would also create room for his bishop to strike because he's so desperate at this point in time. So I had to move my my rook on b3, threatening his knight on b8, and he saw that and moved the knight to c6. So at this point I had to respond by capturing the knight, and obviously he was going to retaliate, and I was ready for that. So retaliated with his king, capturing my bishop, and I moved my knight across in order to set my knight up to capture the king, or at least check the king at this point. So he brought out the knight since my bishop is gone, and I moved my piece a4 to go closer to threatening the king, and he moved the knight in on d5. So at this point I knew that if I don't do something drastic, I'm gonna lose this game because my opponent is very good as well. So I moved my knight a5, checking the king because I want him to move, and king moved to d7, and at this point I moved my knight to b7 because my rook got the knight covered, right? And my opponent, seeing the threat, decided to move his king to e6, but at this point I had to respond with my my rook on d3, threatening his knight on d5, and suddenly I saw this move from him, trying to capture my rook, and at that point I knew that my opponent is very angry and he wants to capture my rook by every means. So this is a big mistake. When you play the game of chess, don't let revenge overshadow your tactical abilities in the game. So this was where my opponent lost the game to me, actually. So at this point I'm free to capture his piece on d6 because I have my knight on b7 covering that up. So of course I took that opportunity by capturing the piece and at the same time checking his king. I know the king has nothing else to do other than to leave the spot, and so he did. He moved to e5, and at this point I moved my my rook to b6, threatening his knight and also threatening his piece on a6, and he responded by bringing his rook over to b8, threatening my knight. Now from this point, I had to bring in my second rook, so I moved that to a3 and responded to that by bishop on f6. And then I moved my rook e3, checking the king, and the king has no other option than to move, so he moved his king f5. And now I decided to check the king using my knight. The reason why I had to make this move is I know that once I'm checking the king, he has no other option than to move the king away, and I'm going to have the opportunity to capture his rook, which is exactly what I wanted, right? So as soon as I moved the king to g5, I captured his rook for free, and I was happy about that. Once again, I got on his nerves. He was so hungry, and he made this move. Bishop d4, trying to capture my rook once again, just because I captured his rook a few minutes ago. So anger is your enemy in a game of chess. Play without anger and revenge. Okay. So now, because he did that, he lost sight of his knight, which is a very important piece as well. So I had to capture the knight, and because I captured the knight, he captured my rook. I don't care at this point in time because I have other piece protecting that spot, so I captured back. Now he captured my rook, and that was me losing sight of whatever was going on. So I forgot my rook, and it was so painful when I lost that. Okay, but I still wasn't feeling too bad in the game because I mean I have a knight and I also have a bishop, and I can easily develop any of my piece here, any of my pawns. Okay, so I continue checking the king with my knight on e4. The king moves f5, trying to capture my knight this time around because he was really angry. And then I had to check him again a second time. I had to move closer, trying to capture my knight, and at this point in time I knew my knight is in trouble, so I was trying to do everything to run away from the king. So he kept on doing that, and I kept on moving. But then as I move, I'm looking out for opportunities where I can easily check both the king and one of his pawns. Okay, so that will be a plus for me. Now I moved my my pawn e4. At the same time, my knight is protecting that. So he moved closer to my pawn. I wasn't scared because I know there's nothing the king can do to that pawn as long as my knight is there, and there's nothing the king can do to my knight as long as my bishop is there, right? So f3, the king moves closer to my knight. I wasn't faced, and this time around I moved my knight away in order to give my bishop more room for attack. So the king had to move back, and now I brought in my bishop on d2. He goes a5. I go bishop b4, capturing that pawn, and he retaliated by capturing my bishop as well. But I don't care at this point in time because I have a free route to developing my pawn now. Okay, so I moved my pawn up, and he realized that and tried to attack. And the moment he did this, he created more room for this other free pawn here, and I moved that. So there's no way the king can chase two pawns at the same time. It's so difficult. And at this point in time, my opponent was confused on what to do. So he kept on with the initial mission to target my pawn on a5, and so I had to move my pawn on e6. And this time he captured, and I kept moving e7. So he moved down, and I crowned. I made that the queen. Okay, so he moved in. I responded with this, checking the king. He captured my pawn. I'm not faced. I brought my knight into the action. The king moved away because obviously he knows what I was about to do. So, and then I captured the second piece. Now his intention is to develop his piece as well, and I don't want that to happen. So I'm just going to sacrifice my knight, which I did. and he captured. I moved my king e2 in order to trap his king this time around. And mind you, I deliberately did not capture this piece because I'm aware that if I did, it would be very easy for me to make this game a draw, and I don't want that. So I wanted to have other valid moves on the board so I can have enough time to trap the king and box in to one corner. So that was why I decided not to capture this. Alright, so he moved the king in. I followed suit. I moved closer. He moved away. I brought in my queen to capture. He moved away. I brought in my queen closer. He moved away. I brought in my queen closer again. He moved away. I brought in my king this time around because my queen cannot do the checkmate alone. So I brought in the king into action. So he moved away at this point. I kept coming closer. And this time around, he realized he could perform some magic with his pawn, and probably he also did that to distract me. I don't know what he had in mind, but I kept on checking, and he had to move. I checked, he had to move. I brought in my king, he had to move. I brought in my king because this time around I don't want the king to capture my queen for free, so I always want my king protecting my queen. Okay, so he moved up. I have my queen very close to my king, and he kept on with the idea of capturing and causing problems over here. So I wasn't really phased. Okay, I still moved my king. He captured. I don't care at this point because I know I'm going to win the game on the next move. And so I just, boom, checkmate. And there was nothing he could do, because if he comes here, I'm killing. If he tries to kill my queen, I'm killing back, and he can't even come here because my queen is checking him. So this was how I smashed my opponents with a higher rating than I had before the game. So guys, I hope you've learned something from this chess game. I'm still going to release more videos, so if you want to know more, just watch how I smash my opponents. Alright, see you in the next video. Super Sam Crusher.